911, what's the address of your emergency?
This is Tommy Gaston. I've got a man that's been shot out here at my house.
Okay, so he's been shot?
Yes.
When did this happen?
I don't know, just a little bit ago. And we've also got a house on fire out here.
And the house is on fire?
Today, we are discussing a case that unravels the very fabric of family trust. In the quiet woods of Alba, Texas, the Caffey family lived a peaceful lifestyle full of music, laughter, and love. The children grew up in a strict household, which eventually led to one of them acting out and budding a forbidden teen romance. But that normal teen rebellion turned much darker, and before long, an entire family would be left in the wake of unspeakable destruction. What one group of teens thought was the perfect crime would soon blow up in their faces as they left behind a survivor who went on to expose the whole thing. Buckle up, because this case is an absolutely wild ride. But before we get into the details of this case, I want to talk about one way that I've been keeping my skin and hair so much healthier, and that is with the Athena shower head. What a lot of people don't realize is that tap water can be full of chemicals and chlorine, which is not good for your skin or hair. I live in Arizona, which has especially bad tap water, and ever since moving here, I noticed that my hair had been heavy and dull. I actually mentioned that to a friend of mine, an Arizona native, and she said that it's probably my water and that I need to get a new shower head. So I did exactly that. Athena is the #1 dermatologist recommended filtered shower head, and it's for a good reason. Their patent-pending filter is the most powerful filter that filters 98% of harmful chemicals out of your shower water. Plus, Athena's shower head keeps that high water pressure, unlike a lot of other brands which have very low water pressure. So you get the best of both worlds with Athena. And if changing a shower head sounds intimidating, trust me, it's actually very easy to install. It takes just a few minutes, so no handyman or help from dad is needed. So say goodbye to itchy, dry hair and skin with Athena. Right now, Athena is offering a special discount to viewers of my channel. Follow the link down below and head to athena.com/RachelYt or scan the QR code shown here to see the details. Once again, that's athena.com/RachelYt or scan the QR code shown here. Thank you again so much to Athena for partnering with me on today's video. Erin Michelle Caffey was the oldest of 3 children born to parents Penny and Terry Caffey. The family lived in a cabin deep within the woods just outside of Alba in a rural community in Texas. At the time, Erin was a 15-year-old high schooler. Erin's little brother Matthew, who is also known as Bubba, was in the 7th grade, while the youngest of the children, Tyler, was in the 4th grade. Now, it was said that the Caffey parents were protective over their children, especially Erin, maybe even too protective. When the boys were in elementary school and Erin was in middle school, the family moved to Alba from Celeste, a town located about an hour away. The kids were initially enrolled in public school, but apparently there was an incident where a girl was showing interest in Erin and even tried kissing her. At the time, Erin was known as always having trouble in school anyways. She was pretty social and thrived at school in that sense, but she always struggled with her grades and seemed to lag a bit behind her peers. Eventually, she was diagnosed with ADHD, which made it tough to learn in a regular school environment. So only about a month into public school in Alba, Penny and Terry pulled the kids out of school, and for the following 3 years, the children were homeschooled. Partly because they didn't want negative influences to corrupt their kids, but also because they felt that Erin may benefit from a more one-on-one approach to learning. For the 3 years that followed, the kids remained in homeschool. Those outside the family described that the kids were pretty shy, not the most social. I mean, they weren't really getting much social interaction outside the home, though they were well-mannered, polite, and generally very pleasant to be around. Now, the family were known around their community for being deeply involved in their local church, Miracle Faith Baptist Church. Terry worked as a home health aide and lay preacher for the church. In homeschool, the kids were taught a religion-based curriculum. They attended Bible study every Wednesday night and went to church every Sunday morning. There, the family played gospel songs with Penny on the piano, Aaron singing vocals, Matthew playing guitar, and Tyler on harmonica. Those who attended the church said that the family were amazing at what they did. They really brought the music to life, and everyone at the church couldn't help but have huge smiles on their faces anytime the family played. By July of 2007, Erin turned 16 years old, which meant newfound freedom. She got her driver's license. She got an old Chevy pickup truck to drive and started working as a car hop at the local Sonic restaurant. There, those around Erin said that she flourished socially. She had always been a social girl in public school until she started homeschool. But now that she was working, she had the chance to meet new friends again. She was the only one who delivered the food on actual roller skates, and she was young, beautiful, and upbeat. She had these striking blue eyes, blonde hair, and a gentle smile. Boys would often line up their cars on her side of the restaurant just so they could talk to her. But even when these boys would try to ask her out on dates or give her their number, she would always just blush and look away. She seemed totally innocent and mostly unaware of the effect she had on boys her age. That was until she met one boy at work who really caught her attention, Charlie. He was 2 years her senior, with boyish blonde hair, blue eyes, and he dressed like a cowboy. He was always wearing these black cowboy boots and a large black Western hat. He pulled up to Sonic one fateful night after returning from boot camp at Fort Skill in Oklahoma for the Texas National Guard. He would later describe that the moment he saw Erin at Sonic, there was an instant electricity, an instant connection between them. From that day forward, the two started seeing each other, forming a fast and intense whirlwind romance. 17-year-old Charlie Wilkinson lived in the country with his father, stepmother, a stepbrother and sister, and a half-sister. His parents were divorced, with his mother moving to Del Rio, about 6.5 hours away from where he was living with his dad near Dallas. Charlie was an avid hunter, spending much of his time fishing and hunting wild hogs with his friends. He drove an old beat-up Ford Explorer and had planned to enlist in the Army after high school. After the start of their relationship, there was one Sunday morning where Erin met Charlie outside of their church after Mass. There, the two started kissing and making out right there outside the church in plain view. Of course, Erin's parents caught them, broke out the makeup sesh, and told Erin that she was never allowed to see Charlie ever again. He was bad news. But of course, being a rebellious teen, Erin continued seeing Charlie. At that stage, she was probably thinking, what do they know? Charlie is so great. They just don't get him. But I do. I get him. So every afternoon, Charlie would stop by Sonic and spend time with Erin during her break. Then he started attending church every Sunday, marking himself as a devout member who was putting in the work to worship and impress Erin's parents. Eventually, they did start letting Charlie come over to the house. On the weekdays, he could hang out with Erin and her brothers or come inside for family dinner. Erin's curfew was 9 p.m., so Charlie was out the door by that time every night. She also wasn't allowed to talk on the phone past that time every night. On the weekends, though, she could either talk to him or hang out with him until 11 p.m. Terry even started letting Charlie take Erin out for dinners as long as he brought her back by curfew. Even though they weren't ecstatic about their teenage daughter having a boyfriend, they accepted him enough and were starting to feel okay loosening the reins just a little bit as they got to know him more. By the end of that year, in December of 2007, the Caffey kids convinced their parents to enroll them back in public school. They all missed their friends, and Penny was thinking about going back to work to earn the family some extra money. So once starting school, though, Erin and Charlie grew inseparable. They were often seen walking hand in hand down the hallway. They ate lunch together and would find time during the day to slip out and hang out in Erin's truck. According to Charlie's friends, he was totally infatuated with Erin. She's all he talked about. The two continued their relationship. When just a few days after Christmas, they managed to find some time alone at a friend's house. There, they slept together for the first time. This seemed to really seal the deal for Charlie because shortly after that, Charlie gave Aaron his grandmother's engagement ring. He was not officially proposing, but he was making a promise to her. Of course, Aaron started wearing the ring around, so her parents noticed it pretty much right away. When they did, they demanded that she take it off, feeling that she was way too young to have some boy promise himself to her. That next Sunday, when Terry saw Charlie at church, he pulled him aside and told him how inappropriate that gesture was. He said that no boy is going to be promising himself to his 16-year-old daughter. From there, the Caffeys started restricting how much time the couple got to spend together. Charlie was allowed over to the house once per week under their direct supervision. No more taking her out for dinner or hanging out in the yard without them there. These restrictions lasted a few months after that, and they absolutely infuriated Erin. She started talking to her aunt about how she wanted to run away with Charlie when she turned 17. She started getting into these intense, heated arguments with her parents, especially her mother, Penny. Once, she called Charlie in tears, saying that Penny slapped her during an argument. By that point, Erin had her own cell phone, which her parents bought for her, with a phone curfew of 10 p.m. each weeknight. By February of 2008, Penny caught Erin talking on the phone until midnight. She had snuck her phone in her room after her parents were asleep to talk to Charlie. As a result, Erin was grounded. Penny took her phone and car keys away and started driving Erin to and from school each day, meaning that the freedom Erin once knew, driving herself to school and work, making stops along the way, that was now gone. Worst of all, Terry and Penny were now completely preventing Erin from seeing Charlie at all. Their weekly visits at the house were now gone. All throughout February of that year, those who knew the family said that they could tell something was off with each and every one of them. Penny often seemed distracted and uninterested in their church get-togethers. Terry seemed to have no energy, and when Erin would sing at the church, her once soulful melodies were flat and emotionless. By February 27th, Penny actually decided to go online and check out Charlie's online presence. At the time, social media wasn't nearly as prevalent as it is today, but MySpace was starting to emerge and more teenagers and young adults were making pages to connect with one another and express their personalities. On Charlie's page, he openly cussed and talked about having sex, drinking alcohol, and getting drunk. To the Caffeys, this essentially confirmed their worst fears. Charlie was a degenerate who was a terrible influence for Erin. That night, Terry and Penny sat Erin down and demanded that the two break up. Terry said, "It's over. You're breaking up with him today. It's over now." To their surprise, though, Erin actually didn't fight back. She admitted that she had been wanting to break up with Charlie for a while now, but just didn't know how. At that time, she promised her parents that she would end things with Charlie. From there, the Caffeys felt that they could finally breathe. Erin would finally end this relationship, and they could go to bed at night knowing that Erin would no longer be hanging around such a bad influence. But unfortunately, that peace would not last long at all. Just 3 days later, at around 4:30 a.m. in the early morning hours of March 1st, 2008, a call came in to the Rains County Sheriff's Department to report that there was a man shot and his house was on fire. The man on that line, Tommy, said that his neighbor was at his house after being shot multiple times, saying that his house was also on fire.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
This is Tommy Gaston. I've got a man that's been shot out here at my house.
Okay, so he's been shot?
Yes.
When did this happen?
I don't know, just a little bit ago. And we've also got a house on fire out here.
And the house is on fire? Is the assailant still nearby?
I don't know any more details. I've got to hang up and help him.
Sir, I have to ask you these questions. Okay, they're en route. Is there any serious bleeding?
Yes, he's bleeding.
Okay, is he completely awake?
Yes, he's awake.
Okay, what part of the body was
I
injured?
don't know, but I've got to go.
Sir, I need to know where he was shot.
Did what?
I need to know where he was shot
I
at.
don't know.
Officers were dispatched to the rural wooded area where they drove up a gravel road until they noticed a faint orange glow in the distance. It was the Caffey home. When they got closer, they saw that this house was totally engulfed in flames and the metal roof had begun to buckle in. 500 yards from the Caffey home was their neighbor's home. Officers made entry into the home, and there they found 41-year-old Terry Caffey lying on the ground in the living room, covered in blood. Upon examination, it was found that Terry had been shot 5 times, once in the head, twice in his right shoulder, and twice more in the back. He was wearing a t-shirt, pajama bottoms, no shoes, and a single sock. He had been shot in his home and then managed to drag himself the 500 yards across the dirt, gravel, a creek, bush, and rocks to his neighbor's house to get help. This journey took almost an hour. When he was faced with investigators, he said that he didn't think he was going to make it. But before his body had a chance to take his breath away, he made sure to tell investigators, "They're all gone. Charlie Wilkinson shot my family." He was then loaded into an ambulance where detectives rushed to get out as many questions as they could about the situation. He managed to tell them that Charlie is his daughter's boyfriend who they recently demanded stay away. So Charlie must have broken into the house while they were sleeping and shot them all to enact his revenge. Being that this is such a small town, these officers already knew who Charlie was. In fact, one of the officers on scene, Chief Deputy Kurt Fisher, said that his sons were friends with Charlie. Further, they noticed that his car was parked outside another high schooler, Matthew Wade's, trailer as they were driving towards the scene. They just sort of happened to notice his truck there before they knew anything about the situation. So, knowing that, an officer headed over to Matthew's place, where they were greeted by a teenager who let them inside. Fisher walked through the trailer until he eventually reached Matthew's room. He and his girlfriend were in there asleep, startling awake to see a cop standing in their room. Matthew then directed him to where Charlie was sleeping. When entering the room Charlie was in, he found that Charlie was lying on a mattress, wide awake, wearing only jeans and no shirt. Next to him lay a semi-automatic handgun. Fisher asked to see Charlie's hands before leading him outside to the porch where he put Charlie in cuffs. He allowed Charlie to grab his cowboy boots, then read him his rights and told him he was being taken into the station for questioning. He informed Charlie that the Caffey family had been attacked, but Charlie remained quiet. He hung his head and followed the officer to the car. Once outside, the sun started coming up and officers noticed what looked like blood spatter on Charlie's boots. As that was happening, firefighters and other first responders were at the Caffey home working tirelessly to put out that fire. By that point, the fire had burned so long that the home was down to its foundation. Finally, later that morning, as the sun was up and the temperature started to rise, the fire was finally put out. At that time, officers could finally make their way inside and saw exactly what happened there. Upon searching through the rubble, they ended up finding 3 bodies: 38-year-old Penny Caffey, 13-year-old Matthew, and 8-year-old Tyler. After making these heartbreaking discoveries, their bodies were sent to the medical examiner for an autopsy. There, it was found that Penny had been shot multiple times as well as stabbed in the neck so deeply that she had nearly been decapitated. Matthew was also shot, while Tyler had been stabbed to death. Their bodies were also very badly burned, so they weren't sure whether they were killed from their wounds or the fire. However, some reports say that it is believed they were alive when the house was set on fire. Meanwhile, Terry was in the hospital undergoing treatment for his extensive injuries. As I said, he had been shot a total of 5 times. As a result, he sustained a broken nose, 2 fractured cheekbones, and some nerve damage in his right arm. But after an extensive stay in the hospital, doctors told him that he could go home. By that point, though, he didn't have a home or even a family. His house was burned down and his family was all dead. He went on to say that he contemplated different ways to take his own life because he just couldn't bear the pain. But he eventually turned to the Bible and found the strength to carry on. He bought an RV and returned to the property where his home once stood. There, he stayed for several months as detectives worked to find justice for what happened. Now, going back to the original scene, detectives went back over to the trailer where they first arrested Charlie. They went into that room, which was poorly lit, so they had to open the blinds to the room to bring in a bit of light. In the room, they found multiple spent shell casings scattered across the floor, and sitting right next to the mattress was a box of ammunition. There was also a black and white Western shirt, which was on the floor next to a used condom. Near the closet, he picked up a blanket that had been bunched up on the floor, and when he did, he found a girl sitting in the corner. The girl just looked up at him silently, but when asked for her name, she said that her name is Erin Caffey. He then led Erin into the living room, where Matt Wade and his girlfriend still were. By that point, the detective had told the 3 that the Caffey family was dead. He then asked Erin how she got there before she looked around the room with a look of shock and disbelief on her face and said, "I don't know. Where am I?" At that time, the detective really thought that Erin looked completely out of it. She was mumbling, looking around, and seemed completely lost. He asked her what happened that night, and all she said in a quiet, sheepish voice was, "Fire." From there, Erin was loaded into an ambulance and taken to the hospital. Once her health evaluation was complete, officers started asking more questions about what she remembers from that night. She said that she had woken up in a house full of smoke before she saw 2 guys with swords who were dressed in all black. These men ordered her to get down on the floor and ordered her to drink something they gave her. From there, she doesn't remember anything. She has no idea how she got into that trailer. Officers noted that she began that interview with tears in her eyes. She still seemed very disoriented and soft-spoken, though the more she spoke, the less emotion she showed. Near the end of the interview, she whispered that she was afraid that people were after her. From the jump, officers felt that Erin truly was a victim in all of this. They knew of her connection with Charlie, but didn't think she had anything to do with the death of her family. In more likelihood, it seems like Charlie may have acted alone or with an accomplice, pissed off about her parents preventing them from seeing each other. Maybe he killed the family and kidnapped Erin as a sick, twisted way for them to be together. But after Charlie was taken in for questioning, what he said put a whole new perspective on the situation. They also questioned other friends and acquaintances of the couple who had their own stories to share. Now, everything seemed to come together. Maybe Erin wasn't an innocent victim in all of this after all. Friends at school said that Charlie and Erin were basically inseparable. They were constantly holding hands, spending every moment together. When they were apart, they were constantly talking about one another. In the days before the murders, they said that both Charlie and Erin were pissed that they were being kept from being together. Charlie talked about running away together, but Erin told multiple friends that the only way for them to be together was if her family was dead. As the days passed, Erin started talking about it more and more, telling friends about it upwards of once or twice a day. At one point, Charlie said that if he got her pregnant, her family would have no choice but to let him stick around. She said, though, that she was too young to have a baby. She insisted that the only way they could be together was if her parents were completely out of the picture. As detectives were finding that out from friends, Charlie was back at the station giving his version of events. When he first started his interview, he remained calmed and disconnected. Even when the detective told him that a witness from the attack had identified him, he didn't waver. Eventually, though, he did start to give bits of information until he finally just pretty much gave everything up. He said that the night before the murders, Erin had called him, still upset about them being kept apart. He claims that he told her that she could just run away, but Erin insisted that he had to kill them. So, after this, Charlie gathered up a group to go to the home and carry out the murders. He initially refused to name anyone involved, but eventually it came out that one of his hunting buddies, 22-year-old Charlie Wade, aka Matthew Wade's younger brother, agreed to help. Apparently, he was in need of money. Erin told Charlie that if he went through with the murder, he could have the $2,000 stored in a lockbox in the home. Charlie offered that $2,000 to his friend, who accepted it. Now, because there's two Charlies, I'm going to be referring to Charlie Wilkinson as Charlie and Charlie Wade by his last name. Now, Wade also got his girlfriend, 18-year-old Bobby Johnson, involved. She would drive them to the location. Charlie said that she actually did not know of their plans that night, but she actually really wanted to join them in whatever they were doing, so they let her drive. Charlie said that all throughout that night, Erin was calling him over and over and over again to come and get him to kill her parents. Finally, by around 1:30 a.m. on March 1st, 2008, Charlie Wilkinson, Charlie Wade, and Bobby all pulled up to the house. When the boys first tried entering, the Caffey's dog started barking a lot, so they decided to leave. However, Erin called Charlie multiple more times, told him to come back, and promised to keep the dog quiet next time. When they went back, they picked up Erin, who was standing at the end of the driveway. They drove around for about an hour, all talking about what they would do. Again, Charlie said that Erin was absolutely insistent that he had to kill her parents. Charlie warned her that they would also have to kill her two little brothers so that they would leave no witnesses behind, to which she apparently said, "I don't care, just do what you gotta do." When they went back, the boys went inside to carry out the crime while the girls waited in the car. When talking about why he did this to investigators, Charlie said that he didn't really have much of a conscience. He wanted to join the army because he was willing to do whatever was needed without thinking much about it. He agreed to kill Erin's parents because of the same logic. It just needed to be done, so he was willing to do it. Once inside the house, both Charlies snuck around carrying a .22 pistol and a samurai sword. Once they reached the master bedroom, they started firing off shot after shot from the pistol, shooting Penny first multiple times, then Terry multiple more times. They kept firing until the gun jammed, at which point Charlie handed the gun over to Wade, who fixed the gun and fired off 2 more rounds. They then left the room, but Charlie actually came back to cut Penny's throat with the sword to make sure that she was dead. When he was sure that the parents were dead, Charlie instructed Wade to go get the kids because little ones talk. Wade threatened to leave at that point because I guess $2,000 is enough to murder 2 adults, but children is where he crossed the line. By that point, both Tyler and Matthew had woken up after hearing the gunshots. They both called out for their parents, then ran into Erin's room to hide. When Charlie got upstairs, he called out for the boys, telling them to go to their beds. He said that he knew they were really scared and couldn't stand to look at their faces. When Matthew got out of Erin's room, he tried to fight Charlie off. He was kicking and hitting him. But Wade, who was still downstairs, saw what was going on, so he shot him in the face, all the way from downstairs. Wade then came up and found Tyler, who was absolutely terrified and hiding in the closet. He and Charlie then both took turns stabbing him to death with the samurai sword. Once that was done, Charlie had grabbed a suitcase that Erin had already packed and brought it out to her. According to Charlie, Erin already had a smile on her face and said that she was happy it was done. The boys then went back inside, found the lockbox, and took everything inside. In total, they found a whopping $375. They then grabbed their pocket lighters and set fire to multiple parts of the home. They set a pile of clothes, some furniture, and bed sheets on fire. After that, they got back in the car and drove around to blow off some steam. Wade then dropped them off at the trailer where Charlie and Erin had sex. Now, that was everything that Charlie told police. While we're talking about how that night went down, I want to give you some of what Terry said. I think hearing this horrific set of events from his perspective is also, of course, very important to hear. According to later testimony from Terry, he said that he remembers just waking up to being shot multiple times. He wasn't sure exactly where he was shot, but it felt like they just kept coming. He then watched as his wife was shot, then stabbed in the neck with the sword. Of course, he was in shock after being shot so many times and after watching his wife be shot and stabbed. He tried his best to speak or move, but he had been shot in the head, so he really wasn't able to. He was actually in and out of consciousness as he started to panic, thinking about the kids. He was just trying to summon enough strength to get up as he heard Matthew start to scream, "No, Charlie, no, why are you doing this?" That is when he knew exactly who was in this house and what exactly he was doing. After hearing his first son scream out, he heard the gunshot. That certainly was enough to get Terry up out of bed, but as soon as he stood up, he passed out and went unconscious once again. He does not know how long he was out, but when he woke up, the house was on fire. Based on how hard the fire was pushing on his bedroom door, he knew he couldn't get out to go upstairs and get to his kids. He had also tried to get to Penny, but he knew that she was already gone. So his next best move was to crawl over to their bedroom window, shimmy through it, and drag himself to the next nearest house, which, as I said, was more than 300 yards away. When he finally reached his neighbor, that is when he was able to call 911. After hearing everything that happened, they also tracked down Bobby Johnson and Charlie Wade. When they found Bobby, she was actually apparently in good spirits. When taken in for questioning, she acted totally dumbfounded and confused for why she was there. But when they told her that they had Charlie Wilkinson and Wade in custody, she realized that she needed to start talking. When they tracked down Wade, it was said that he held out the longest from questioning. But after intense pressure from detectives, he cracked. The story he and Bobby gave were very similar to what Charlie said earlier, but Wade added that as they drove away from her burning home, Erin said, "This is awesome." I want to note that as Wade was telling this story, he showed no emotion or remorse. Now, as they were learning all of this from Charlie, Wade, and Bobby, Erin was also being questioned and examined at the hospital. They ran a toxicology screen on her, which came back negative for any substances. They wanted to see if she was drugged, perhaps with some sort of date rape drug to keep her subdued during the kidnapping. After all, she did seem dazed and confused, but there was nothing. The other interesting thing was that she showed no signs of smoke inhalation, which she would have if she woke up to a fire going off in her house. After these tests at the hospital, she had actually been discharged and was driving away with her grandmother when detectives pulled them over. Erin and her grandma were told that Erin was implicated in the murders, so she was being arrested. Of course, she and her grandmother both became hysterical, with her grandmother refusing to believe that Erin had any part of this. Back at the station, Erin continued to deny her involvement. She went on to give a written statement where she reiterated her original story. She woke up to strangers in her home, which had been lit on fire. She had also been abducted and didn't know how she ended up in the trailer. But I do want to note that upon examining Aaron and Charlie's phone records, everything lined up with what he said. It showed that between 11:46 p.m. and 12:48 a.m., Aaron called him 6 times from inside the house. That was just before he said they showed up the first time. Then from 1:21 to 1:58 a.m., she called 7 more times, lining up with when they returned. Despite her refusal to admit her involvement, she, Charlie Wilkinson, Charlie Wade, and Bobby Johnson were all arrested in connection to the murders of Penny, Matthew, and Tyler Caffey and the attempted murder of Terry Caffey. From there, they were each handed 3 charges of capital murder. The prosecution were requesting the death penalty for Wade, Wilkinson, and Johnson. Now, Aaron was being tried as an adult, but because Aaron was a minor at the time the crimes took place, she could not be given the death penalty. As Aaron sat in jail awaiting her trial, Terry actually visited her in jail about twice a week. By that point, he had been fully informed of Aaron's involvement. He's seen all the police reports. He's seen all the documentation. He knew that his own daughter was very likely responsible for all of his pain and agony. She was the one who orchestrated something so freaking evil.
What kind of involvement is she in? Her involvement is great.
But he still felt compelled to visit his only surviving daughter. When he visited, he wasn't really able to talk about the crime because, of course, the jail was listening in on their calls and anything she said could be used at a trial. But they made small talk, and Aaron said that they were good parents. She told her dad that this isn't his fault. Each of the defendants sat in jail as they awaited their trial, but just months after their arrests, both Wade and Wilkinson came to a plea agreement with the prosecution. In exchange for being spared the death penalty, they both pleaded guilty to their charges. For this, they received sentences of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Meanwhile, Bobby also pleaded guilty to being an accomplice to the murders who did not use a weapon. For her involvement, she was sentenced to 40 years behind bars, but will be eligible for parole after 20. As for Aaron, she also accepted a plea deal, receiving 2 life sentences for her role, making her eligible for parole when she is 59 years old. After all of this, Terry obviously has had and still has a painful, long road to recovery. As far as I last saw, he has remarried to a woman he met at his job as a home health aide. She was a divorced mother of 2 who he really just connected with. Many people who knew him said that he really just missed being a husband and a father, so he found a woman who could give him some of that happiness back. He also makes the 3-hour drive every month to visit his daughter in prison. As far as the last report on this case, he still does that. He went on to say that he has found a way to forgive Aaron for what she did to their family. Aaron, as an adult, went on to say that she made a series of mistakes when she was younger without thinking about the larger consequences she would face. She said that her parents never abused her, never treated her unfairly. It was simply her wanting to take them out because of a boy she was infatuated with. I haven't really seen anything come out about the other perpetrators in all of this. It was said that Charlie Wilkinson was known to be a hothead and violent at times, though he never had any prior convictions or serious run-ins with the law. Charlie Wade was actually married and had a baby daughter at the time. His estranged wife said that Wade also never had a history of violence, but did say that after they broke up and he started dating Bobby, his whole personality changed. She also knew him to be more prone to drinking and getting into fights when he was around Charlie Wilkinson. But with that being said, There truly is nothing that can explain why this happened. I refuse to chalk Erin's involvement up to her just making mistakes and wanting to stay with her man. Because I don't know about you, but most people would never consider that an option if their parents told them they couldn't be with their high school sweetheart. Even if she did come up with this plot and Charlie carried it out, you'd think that after the gravity of what happened set in, she'd be torn up about it. But still, as they drove away from a house full of her dead family members, she said it was just awesome. And as far as I've seen, she's really only talked about her not understanding the consequences of her actions, her not understanding that, she'd get in a lot of trouble and that, she was causing so much damage. The fact that you can be a 17-year-old teenager and not realize that killing people would have serious consequences, that just shows that there is something very deeply wrong with her. As for Charlie, I obviously think that he has some sort of personality disorder that just makes him numb to consequences. It's been said that he had a habit of wanting to fix others. So that, paired with what he said about just doing what needed to be done, I think that's exactly how he saw this. He thought that he was in love. She wanted him to do this thing for her, so he just did it because she wanted him to. The part that baffles me the most in this whole thing is Wade and Bobby's involvement. Of course, carrying out an entire murder for $2,000 does not make sense by any means. The fact that you're willing to do such horrific things for such a small amount of money, or for any amount of money for that matter, it does not make any sense. And then for Bobby, it was said that she didn't know what she was getting into initially, but obviously they drove around and talked about the murder before they went in and did it. At no point did she turn around and refuse to take part. At no point did she say, you guys can find your own ride. I'm going home. I'm not going to be involved with this. I'm not going to be involved in the murder of an entire family. She just drove to the house and let them go in, knowing what they were going to do. I think her part is just pure stupidity and wanting to fit in with those around her. To think that she's spending 20 to 40 years behind bars for driving a car and waiting as her boyfriend murdered 3 people for $2,000 is just insane to think about. And knowing that she has to sit there and think about that every single day, I'm sure she obviously regrets what she did, but there's obviously something wrong with her as well, to think that you can just drive people to a house, pull up, knowing that they're going in to commit 4 murders, and then driving away with them as they saw the house on fire. None of this makes sense. None of their participation makes sense. This whole thing never should have happened, obviously, and it's just insane to think about how it all went down. But that is where the case sits right now. Everyone involved remains behind bars, and in just over 2 years, Bobby will be up for parole. I am very much looking forward to seeing if she's actually granted it. As for everyone else, thankfully, neither Charlie, Wade, or Wilkinson will ever see the outside of a prison ever again. That's exactly how it should be, knowing just how horrific of a crime they committed without as much as a second thought. Erin, I think she absolutely should be behind bars for life, because without her, this never happens. I'm also looking forward to see if she is ever granted parole, but it will be a very long time before we ever find that out. But you all heard my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you all. What do you think about this case overall? Why do you think these 2 young men committed such a horrific crime? Do you think they would have gone on to do something similar if it weren't for Erin, or was this all because of her? What do you think of her father's forgiveness, and what do you think of her sentence? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you like this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell to on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Spotify. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.